The design brief for this particular piece of work called for the installation of a quite reflective area in a public park, and this was to be used for various ceremonies. So there's a line of sight through here, and if we zoom in, a sort of plinth, a raised plinth with an urn to be placed on top, a paved area surrounded by a header zone. The area out to the left is grassed. Then there is to be a memorial wall running around here with a curving part to it. So there's an attempt to make a sense of enclosure in here, and one where a group of people can be relatively protected from others and in a quite contemplative space. If we turn on a layer called dim, the designer here was determined to give the construction team enough detail to be able to locate it. There was an existing path running through here through an intersection, and what he did was to firstly determine the edge of the paved area, and that's determined by the intersection of two circles. If I click on the uppermost circle first, you can see its anchor point, or its set out point, is the corner of the path. And if I pick the other circle, the set out point, the center of this circle, is at the opposite intersection of the paths. So the point, let me unselect all, the point of intersection here gives the construction team a start point. They can start laying out the design at that point, and all of the other dimensions that they require have been incorporated into the drawing on and placed on this L-dim layer. So that the rock wall, 1800 high, I think, memorial, no, it's not specified there, but it's a relatively high wall around there, and the other the dimensions are there, so that if we look at them, the distance from the corner of the paved area up to the end of the paved area is 13,770 millimeters. The wall is to be offset 2 meters from that edge, and then if we come up here, there's a 2.25 meter offset from the edge of the wall through there. So there are enough dimensions in this design for the construction team to set it out and then to lay the design out quite conveniently. So the landscape designer here is providing a lot of very useful information. He's even put some extra information in the zone of the plinth and the position for the urn, and he's drawn those over here in this zone. And you'll notice that if we click on a dimension here, it has a particular dimension style. Its style is called Paul 2. So let's have a look at one of the other dimensions. Try and do these simultaneously. If we pick this one, it's, of course we have to unselect all. If we select that dimension, it's in a style called style 1. So clearly there are at least two different dimension styles there. And if we go to dimensions, list the styles, click on this tab here, style Paul 2 that we were looking at for that smaller area along the dimensions of the support base has arrowhead 150, text 150, whereas if we go back to style 1, look at the geometry there, the arrow size is still 150, but notice we're using an architectural tick mark here. We could perhaps increase that to 300, and you should see the architectural tick mark increase in size, and the text is 300. So we can OK that, and the architectural tick mark that is used in that dimension style is now a little more obvious. So we have at least two dimension styles in this drawing, one used for this detail where we zoom in, if you like, on the support base, and let's add another dimension or two to it. And that's done by making sure that style, in this case Paul 2, is current, and I come over here and just check that. I click in the down box in dimension style and set it to whatever I want. But style Paul 2 is now set. And the angle, if I select this polyline, the line I want to dimension now clearly is at an angle. And for that, and to dimension that, we use an angular dimension, which is this one here. Angular dimension, we pick the end there, and for the other culmination of the line, we go there, and I'll select that dimension and put it on the layer LDIM, and its colour, of course, will change to red. So we dimension this area using one dimension style and the main design area using another. If I swing to a layout view now, here's a layout view, and I've made the floating viewport. Here's one of them. That floating viewport is looking at the more detailed design for the base of the plinth, and this one here is looking at the larger dimension. Now notice that my cursor colour here in this drawing has gone to be set at white, and that's not convenient for me working in this area. And what I want to do is go to Tools and Drawing Parameters, and I'll see what has happened here. So the paper cursor cover, the colour of the cursor in paper space has been set to white, and that's making life extremely difficult. So let's turn it to black, and we'll OK that and come back here, and now you can see we can easily select floating viewports in that way. So you do need to keep your eye on, especially when you pick up a drawing from someone else, keep an eye on what they might have done to the drawing parameters. So that area is now ready to print, but you might want to create another layout where you turn off, or even in this layout where we might want to turn off the planting. So let's see if we can do that. If we select the floating viewport and right click, we can play with the viewport layers, and we may well be able to turn off the symbol by just clicking there, and those symbols disappear, and I can unselect all. So clearly the symbols around here are on the wrong layer, and we want those symbols there. Whoops, a little hard to select them. If I choose the larger, I think it's a Manchurian pear, it's on a layer called All Plant Symbol, and I can turn that symbol layer off here just for the moment, and we're left with these symbols here, which are now much easier to pick. And I'll just move those from a layer plant to a label plant symbol. So there's some rather mix-up layers here. There's a flagpole going in that area there. So now we should be able to turn that layer back on. That's the plant symbol layer. So in model space now we can see all the symbols, see the complete design. But when we go to layout, because we've turned off that symbol layer, the plant symbols now disappear. Now, I think we've got our wall on the wrong layer. We need a couple of lines through here to delineate the planting area. So it's by no means complete and smooth just yet. But I hope you can see that dimensions are important. Learning to manipulate your view in different layouts and in floating viewports is also important.